I was already halfway through my midnight shift at 103.3 FM when the call started. You get used to odd voices when you run late-night radio. People talking about shadow men, demons in the microwave, lizard people running the IRS. But tonight, there was a tremble in every voice, a shared nervousness I couldn't place at first. The first caller didn't say hello, just launched right in. "Something's wrong with the sky." I sipped my black coffee, static humming behind her words. "You'll have to be a bit more specific, Janice. It's not the stars. They're still there. It's something else. There's a new one. A big one. It's not a star. It's a planet. I swear it." I glanced at the monitors above me. No breaking news alert. No NASA report. Just me, a mic, and a soundboard full of commercials I'd play between the madness. I chuckled nervously. "You sure it's not the moon, Janice?" "I know the damn moon. This is different. It's closer." That word sat heavy in the air, closer. More calls came in. Different towns. Same description. A round, dark object, the size of a dime held at arm's length, floating beside the moon. No glow. No rings. No name. Just there. By 1:32 a.m., I switched format, dropped the usual playlist, and opened the lines for reports. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that something was happening, and the world hadn't caught up yet. Then the dream started. Caller after caller began mentioning them, not in passing, as their main reason for dialing in. They described the same thing, word for word. I was in a field. Wheat. Golden, endless. There was a voice. No, not quite a voice. More like a pressure in my chest. Like a thought that didn't belong to me. The fifth caller to say it used the exact same phrasing as the first. It chilled me. I took a breath and turned my mic off. The on-air light blinked red above the booth door. I leaned back and stared through the glass into the dark lobby of the station. No one was there but me. Always just me after midnight. But I felt watched. Not haunted. Not paranoid. Just observed. The night stretched on, and the reports grew more vivid. One caller claimed they saw shadows in the dream. Tall, humanoid figures on the horizon of that endless wheat field. Just watching. Not moving. Someone else claimed they could hear them whispering, but not in a language. Just breath and static, like old analog radio stations bleeding through the dial. And then, at 2:47 a.m., the emergency alert went off. Not the usual tone. This one was distorted, garbled like it was passing through layers of broken tape. It lasted exactly 8 seconds. Then silence. No message. The call board lit up instantly, every line screaming red. I answered the first. "Did you hear that?" The man was out of breath, panicked. "It played here too. But I was watching YouTube on my phone. My phone. No reason for it to play on that." Caller after caller described the same thing. Phones, televisions, old radios long unplugged, all emitting the same scrambled burst. Then one woman said something I still can't forget. It wasn't a warning. It was a key. That's when I felt it. A pressure in my head. Not pain, exactly. Just a presence. Like something had leaned in, close and heavy, and was waiting to see if I noticed. I looked out the studio's window, and I saw it, hanging low above the horizon, obscured partially by drifting clouds. Not glowing. Not blinking. No stars behind it. Just a black mass, round and too still. It wasn't just close. It was here. And I knew, deep down, that it had always been here. We just hadn't noticed. I didn't sleep that morning. I left the station as the sun crept up over the east hills, casting long streaks of red across the sky. The planet, if you could call it that, was still there, faint now, just a smudge against the lightning blue. But it hadn't moved. Not an inch. I drove home in silence. No podcast. No music. No thoughts, really, other than that field, golden wheat swaying, a horizon too far, too empty, and yet undeniably full. I hadn't dreamed it, but I remembered it. That scared me most. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I saw old Tom from 3B standing in his bathrobe, staring at the sky like he was trying to remember something he'd never learned. He didn't wave. He didn't blink. Just watched. I went inside and locked the door behind me. I didn't turn on the lights. Sat on my bed, staring at the muted glow of my blackout curtains. I don't know how long I sat there, or how many times I whispered, "What the hell is happening?" into the silence. I only know I slept eventually because I woke up screaming. It wasn't a dream. Not exactly. More like I'd been pulled somewhere. The same field, this time closer to the center. I wasn't walking, I was gliding, drifting like fog. The wheat tickled my legs, though I couldn't feel my feet. The sky was black, stars wiped clean. No moon. Just a thin silver line on the horizon like the edge of something enormous and cold rising. Then I saw them. The silhouettes. Tall, rigid, backlit by nothing at all. There were 6 of them, spaced evenly like teeth in a broken comb, unmoving. But I knew they were looking at me. Not with eyes, just aware of me. And they were waiting. I woke up soaked in sweat. My clock read 3:03 p.m. That's when I saw my phone. I hadn't checked it all day, but now there were over 40 missed calls. Listeners, producers, even my ex, Tanya. All saying the same thing in increasingly frantic voicemails. "Are you okay? Did you see it? It moved. The planet. It had shifted, barely, but enough to notice. It was lower in the sky now, casting a faint curve of shadow across the clouds beneath it, like a second moon rising from the wrong direction." By the time I got back to the station, the parking lot was half full. I hadn't seen it that packed in months. People from town gathered near the entrance, some with binoculars, others with cameras. No one was talking. They just stood there, watching the sky. I didn't stop. Just walked past them, up the stairs, and into the booth. The lights were already on. The monitors were running, and the red on-air sign was blinking. But I hadn't turned anything on. The microphone was live. I reached out slowly and killed the feed, heart hammering. The playlist wasn't running. Instead, the monitor displayed a flat waveform, as if the signal had been transmitting static. Or something else. I checked the logs. At 1:11 p.m., the system recorded a broadcast. No DJ. No signal source. A transmission lasting 2 minutes and 17 seconds. I hit play. At first, it was just wind. Not white noise, wind. Gusting, low, rising like a breath held too long. Then came the whispering. Layered. Out of sync. 1,000 voices speaking over each other in what felt like pain or prayer. And then, clear as a bell, my voice. "I see you." I yanked my hand back like the keyboard had bitten me. My voice. But I hadn't said those words. Not today. Not ever. I checked the logs again. Audio file labeled. Field _recording _001.wave. I'd never named anything like that. I opened the phone lines. Caller 1. I recorded the broadcast. It played through my baby monitor. Caller 2. I blacked out during it. When I came to, I'd drawn something. Caller 3. My husband says I was whispering your name in my sleep. He doesn't even listen to your show. Caller 4. I think it's waking up. Caller 5 didn't speak. I could hear them breathing. Wet, broken, gurgling like they were trying to talk underwater. Then the line cut. I sat in silence for a long time after that. Then, I spoke the words that would change everything. If you've been dreaming of the field, you're not alone. If you've seen the planet move, call me. If you've heard your own voice saying things you don't remember, stay on the line. We're going to figure this out. My screen filled with red lights. They were all calling. And every last one of them had seen the figures. The phone lines didn't stop blinking. For the next 3 hours, I listened to story after story, each more unsettling than the last. And what unnerved me most wasn't what they said. It was how they said it, flat, hollow, like the words had been rehearsed in a trance. One man whispered, "It's teaching us how to listen." A young girl said, "I keep waking up with dirt in my bed." Wheat chaff in my hair. Another caller played me a voicemail she'd left herself in her sleep. Her voice was childlike, eerie in its rhythm. 5 in the dark. 1 to see. 1 to open. 1 to lead. I wrote those words down. And then the lights went out. Total blackout. The board went dead. The power gone. The static in my headphones was replaced by an oppressive, unnatural silence. Even the emergency backup generator didn't kick in. No hum, no buzz. Just stillness. I stood, trying not to panic. The backup flashlight sat in the drawer below the console. I grabbed it with shaking hands and flipped it on. Nothing. It didn't work. That was when I realized the air was too still. The entire station, usually full of the faint mechanical breathing of machines and lights, was lifeless. I stepped out into the hallway. The lobby windows were black, not from the lack of power, but from something thick like fog pressed against the glass from the outside. I moved closer and realized it wasn't fog at all. It was wheat. Endless, golden, swaying wheat pressed up against the glass like the outside world had vanished, replaced by that dream field. I backed away, heart pounding in my throat, when the broadcast returned. Not from the studio, from the walls. A low hum vibrated through the drywall, resonating in my bones. I could feel the signal, beneath my skin, behind my eyes. It wasn't a noise. It was a presence. It said, "Broadcast initiated." And just like that, the lights flickered on. The systems rebooted. The hum vanished. I staggered back into the studio, sat down, and stared at the monitor. The waveform had returned. Another recording had been made, labeled automatically. Field_recording_002.wave. I hesitated, then clicked play. This time, it was my voice again, but wrong. Slurred, deep, like I was underwater or mimicking myself badly. Field open vision aligned. Signal matched. Prepare for transmission 3. The lights flickered. Someone or something knocked at the studio door. 3 short raps. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Another knock. Then a scrape, like long fingernails across the metal frame. I stood and crept toward the door. My hand reached out, trembling, to the knob. Silence. No one there. No wheat. No fog. Just the empty hallway. I shut the door fast and locked it. Turned the mic back on and spoke into the void, my voice cracking. If you're still listening, call me. Tell me I'm not the only one seeing this. Hearing this. The calls returned instantly. One woman cried as she spoke. My son, he's not my son anymore. A man claimed he saw the figures from the dream, but awake, standing on the side of the road as he drove home from work. Another caller said he was in the field right now. I asked him where. He said, I'm at home, in my bed, but I can't wake up. Please help me. Then the line dropped. I ended the show early that night. Said it was a system fault. Blamed the power outages. But it wasn't true. I left because I couldn't keep listening to them. Because deep down I knew where this was going. And I was scared that I wanted to go with it. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't dare. Instead, I sat in my apartment staring at the new planet, still hovering above the western horizon like a judgment unspoken. And I whispered to the dark, "What do you want from us?" The answer came, not in words, but in a hum rising from beneath the floorboards. A vibration that rattled the picture frames on my walls. I understood it, somehow. Not in language. In feeling. It wasn't here to take us. It was here to invite us. The next day, the planet was brighter. Not glowing, just visible. Like it had absorbed sunlight through the night and now reflected it back in a dull, dark shimmer. It no longer looked like a planet, not really. It had ridges, grooves, structures? I couldn't tell. What I did know was this. It had moved closer again. You didn't need telescopes to see it now. You could see it with your bare eyes, looming next to the moon like a bloated parasite. And the world noticed. News anchors fumbled with scripts. Astronomers gave long, uncomfortable pauses before answering basic questions. The president addressed the nation and called it a light trick, an atmospheric aberration, entirely harmless. But I saw the truth in his eyes. He was terrified. That evening, I returned to the station early. I felt safer there, surrounded by equipment, microphones, walls of sound. The building was old, full of forgotten corners and tangled cords, but it felt like mine. It had always felt like a second skin. Until now. I found the front door ajar. The lobby lights flickering. No sign of forced entry. No one inside. I closed the door behind me, slowly, locking it tight. As I climbed the stairs to the studio, I heard it. Faint static. Not from the board. Not from the speakers. From somewhere deeper. It was coming from the ventilation system. A whisper, echoing through the ducts. I leaned in close and heard a child's voice. Not speaking. Humming. A soft melody. One I didn't recognize. It looped again and again, growing slower with each repeat. Then I heard my name. Soft. Drawn out. Matt. I staggered back. No one knew I was here. No one should have known my name, not like that, not through that. I opened the studio and found the waveform already running. Recording. A new file was being saved in real time. Field_recording_003.wave. I hadn't touched a thing. The soundboard hissed softly, the red on-air light glowing even though the switch was off. I stared at the mic, the headphones, the mixer. Then I heard it, my voice again, playing live over the airwaves. They're coming through the field now. I stepped back, my knees hitting the chair behind me. I grabbed the mouse and stopped the recording. Then the phones rang. Every line. Instantly. I answered the first. A man's voice, ragged, desperate. They're not dreams anymore. My wife vanished last night. I woke up and she was gone. Bed's still warm. But she's gone. The second caller. I watched my daughter walk out into our backyard barefoot. I followed her. She was standing in the wheat. The wheat. I live in Brooklyn. Click. Caller 3. The figures are moving now. They're not watching anymore. They're choosing. Caller 4. You're not broadcasting anymore. You're channeling. You're the conduit. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Then the final call came in. Blocked number. I picked up, and a familiar voice said, "Hello, Matt." It was me. Not a recording. Live. My voice. Different city. Different place. Echoes of traffic in the background. I could hear myself breathing. And then I said, "You know what this is. You always knew." The line went dead. I didn't move for a full minute. When I finally stood, I turned everything off. Everything. Board. Mics. Lights. I walked out of the station, keys still on the desk. Left the door unlocked. Got into my car and drove without thinking. I don't remember where I went. Only that I ended up at the edge of town, parked on a hill overlooking the valley. And there it was, the field. Golden. Glowing faintly. Stretching across what used to be a highway and several housing development. Gone. All gone. Replaced. I stepped out of my car and walked to the edge of it. The air smelled like rain and copper. The wheat rustled, though there was no wind. And then I saw someone standing there. It was me. Same clothes. Same face. But older. He raised his hand and beckoned. Then he turned and walked into the field. I didn't follow. Not yet. I turned back, got into my car, and returned to town. But I knew I couldn't stay. None of us could. Because the planet wasn't approaching. It was anchoring. And the dreams weren't dreams. They were instructions. I didn't go back on air that night. Instead, I sat in my apartment with the blinds drawn and every light on. The glow from the lamps didn't make me feel safer. Just more awake. And I couldn't afford to sleep. Not after what I saw in the field. Not after seeing myself. I kept the TV on for background noise, but every channel was static or looping footage of the president's last address. The screen showed his frozen face, lips parted mid-sentence, eyes glassy, like a still frame had been stretched beyond its limit. My phone buzzed once every few minutes. Missed calls. Voicemails. texts from listeners, strangers, old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. They were all asking the same thing. Have you seen it again? The answer was yes. I'd seen it every time I blinked. The field. The figures. Myself. But now something had changed. Because for the first time I felt like they were trying to come through me. At exactly 2:14 a.m., I heard my radio turn on in the other room. I didn't touch it. Didn't even own a smart system that could do that. The station was dead air silent. No music. No static. Just a deep, steady hum, like the inside of a metal vault. Then a voice. Not mine. Not any I recognized, but speaking through my frequency. Transmission 4 has begun. The voice was calm, measured. It spoke slowly, syllables dropping like lead. You will feel the shift. You will not resist it. This is the price of knowing. And then, silence. I turned off the radio, threw it across the room. It didn't break. It just landed gently like gravity had changed its mind. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. The next evening, I returned to the station. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to know if anyone else was still in this. When I arrived, I found something taped to the front door. A photograph. An old Polaroid, slightly curled from humidity. It showed the studio. From behind the mic. A perfect shot of my chair. Empty. And written on the back, in faint pencil. One to speak. One to bring. I left it there. Upstairs, I booted up the console. The waveform was already recording. Of course it was. And the phone lines were open, even though I hadn't enabled them. No ringtone. Just a single call. Already connected. A man breathed heavily on the other end. Are you broadcasting? He asked. Not really, I said. I can hear you through my walls. I paused. You're listening now? No. I mean my walls. They hum. Your voice comes through the plaster. Even when I turn everything off. Even when I go outside. I tried to respond, but he kept going. I think I'm starting to dream while I'm awake. I see the field everywhere now. In the grocery store. In my rearview mirror. I looked down at my plate tonight, and it was full of wheat. His voice cracked. My wife tried to eat it. She said it tasted like home. He sobbed quietly. I buried her this morning. She didn't die. She just stopped moving. Smiling, like she was listening to music I couldn't hear. I ended the call. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I did. My mic was still on. I whispered into it without thinking. If you're awake out there, I know what you're feeling. I know you think you're losing your mind. But you're not. The world is losing us. One listener at a time. The phones lit up again. Line after line after line. I took one more. This one wasn't a person. Not really. Just a voice. Calm. Familiar. Do you remember the first dream? It asked. I froze. Because I did. But I had never told anyone. Yes, I said. The voice responded instantly. Then you've already crossed. You just haven't noticed yet. Click. Dial tone. My hands were shaking. My mouth dry. I opened my browser and searched every major news outlet. Nothing. No mention of the planet. No updates. Even the old footage had been scrubbed. But in local forums, obscure message boards, people were still talking. Sharing drawings of the figures. Posting audio clips of voices whispering through their walls. Asking the same question I'd asked into the dark days ago. What do you want from us? The answer came the next morning. Written in the sky. The planet, if you could still call it that, had unfurled. Petals, like black glass, had opened around its surface. Massive arms of structure, curling like antennae or spires, reaching outward. Toward us. I stared up at it, thousands of others doing the same in parking lots, rooftops, playgrounds. And as we watched, a shape began to emerge across its surface. Like something beneath the crust, pressing outward. A face. Not human. But familiar. Because I'd seen it. In my dreams. It was mine. I stopped answering the phone. I didn't even bother pretending I was still running a show. The lines blinked endlessly now, random bursts of static or recorded loops of people begging, praying, whispering names that weren't theirs. Some weren't even in languages I recognized. Some weren't in language at all. I knew then what I had become. A receiver. And something was trying to come through me. That night, I slept for the first time in 3 days. I didn't mean to. One moment I was staring at the ceiling of my apartment, listening to my own voice echo in my head, and the next I was standing in the field again. Except this time, the wheat was burning. Silent flames devoured the stalks, but there was no heat, no crackle, just light. Soft, golden light, and a breeze that made the smoke drift in slow, deliberate spirals. The 6 figures were closer now. I could see them in detail. Their bodies were unnaturally tall, skin like stretched parchment over broken bones. No eyes, no mouth, just slits where their faces should have been, and hands, too many fingers, twitching like antennae, reaching upward as if tuning an invisible frequency. They moved without walking, sliding, and they surrounded me. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Only a signal. A deep, vibrating pulse that didn't come from my throat, but from my teeth. They tilted their heads in unison, as if pleased. Then I saw him again. Myself. Standing in the center of the circle. Naked, skin covered in radio dials, each spinning slowly, the needles all pointing to a station I'd never heard before. 114.4, field entry. My double raised his hands. He spoke with my voice. "You've been chosen." The figures turned, and the field fell away, like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath the sky. I woke up gasping, blood in my mouth, the taste of iron thick on my tongue. I had bitten clean through my bottom lip, and still the hum lingered in my jaw. I didn't go back to the station the next day. I didn't have to. The broadcast had already started. When I turned on the TV, it was playing my face. Not a recording. Not a live stream. A close-up of my face, eyes open but unfocused, lips slightly parted. Like I was waiting. This was every channel. Every device. Even the broken radio from my bedroom. Even the microwave. Even my neighbor's baby monitor. Me. Sitting. Waiting. Listening. And in the background, a voice. Soft, soothing, layered with static and wind. "The gate is ready. Align yourselves. We will pass together." My phone rang once. It was Tanya. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Not since the divorce. Not since I left in the middle of the night, unable to explain why I woke up screaming every day or why I smashed the bathroom mirror every time I caught my reflection whispering. I answered. Silence. Then her voice, small, tired. "You were right." I didn't know what to say. "I see it now," she continued. "I see you. In the sky. You're getting bigger." She was crying. "You're not the planet, are you?" And then a whisper. "You're what it's using to learn us." She hung up. I didn't move for a long time. Because deep down I knew she was right. The next time I returned to the station, the door was open. The lights were already on. And inside the studio were dozens of people. Sitting on the floor, eyes closed, swaying in unison. The soundboard was live. The broadcast was running. And no one had touched it. I walked between them slowly. No one looked up. No one moved. Just soft hums from their throats, timed perfectly. They were tuning. I sat down behind the mic, looked at the waveform, and began to speak. "I don't know how much longer we have." A few people opened their eyes. "I don't know what it wants. Not entirely. But I know it's not finished. And I know it's learning. Through us. Through our fear. Through the signal. Through the dreams." I looked into the camera I didn't remember setting up. And I said the only thing that still made sense. "Turn off your radios. Don't listen. Don't tune in." The room trembled. Not metaphorically. Physically. The floor shifted beneath me. Some of the people began to scream. Others fell into convulsions. One girl laughed and screamed at the same time, her voice fracturing like glass under pressure. And then the sound came. From the mic. From the walls. From me. It wasn't a voice. It was a frequency. One I wasn't supposed to hear. But I heard it anyway. And as it rose, I understood. We weren't being broadcast to. We were the broadcast. Every dream. Every echo. Every scream into the void. It had always been listening. And now? It was ready to speak back. It didn't stop when I turned the power off. I pulled the plug from the soundboard. I shut down every breaker in the building. Still, the broadcast continued. The speakers vibrated with a silent signal, no waveform, no audio, just pressure. Like a heartbeat behind the drywall. I stumbled out of the studio, past the others on the floor. They were still swaying, still humming. But their eyes were open now. And they were all watching me. Not like listeners, like receivers. I ran. Through the stairwell, down the hall, out into the cold night. But I couldn't hear my footsteps. Only static. A rising, pulsing noise in my ears that made the world seem distant, delayed by half a second. Everything was off sync. Like I wasn't moving through reality anymore, but through recorded time. I made it to my car and locked the doors. Tried to scream. No sound came out. Just that same tone, low, vibrating the glass, making my hands tremble on the wheel. Then I felt it. A warmth in my throat. Like something waking up inside me. The rearview mirror shimmered. And I saw it. The field. Stretching behind me. Wheat pushing up through the asphalt of the road, golden stalks swaying where traffic should be. In the middle of it stood a figure. Me. Again. Eyes wide. Lips moving. But no sound. Just static. The signal. I drove. Fast. Anywhere. But the road never changed. No signs. No lights. Just that soft hum and the dark sky overhead, with the planet above, larger now. So close I could see the movement beneath its surface. Not tectonic shift. Not clouds. Structures. Like antennae, folding in and out, pulsing. It was alive. And it was watching me. I ended up at Tanya's house. I don't remember how I got there. Only that I stood outside in the rain for what felt like hours before she opened the door. She didn't look surprised. Only tired. Like she'd been expecting me. Without a word, she led me in. The living room was dark, except for a candle on the table and a sheet of paper in the center, covered in frantic handwriting. My handwriting. I didn't write this, I said. Tanya nodded. You left it here 6 months ago. I haven't been here in a year. She slid the paper toward me. You came in your sleep, she whispered. You sat right there. Said the planet wasn't from outside. That it came from inside our signal. That we birthed it, grew it, every time we listened. I scanned the writing. The letters trembled as I read. A dream with enough believers becomes a map. A voice with enough listeners becomes a doorway. We didn't discover it. We remembered it. I looked at her. She was crying. I can't turn off the sound anymore, she said. Even when it's silent. Even when I close my ears. It's in the air now. Then she leaned closer. And I saw you, Matt. In the field. You weren't trying to get out. You were leading them. The next morning, the sun didn't rise. Not properly. Just a faint glow behind a thick haze. The sky was bronze. The air, wrong. Too still. Too full. Like something was sitting on the world. I turned on the news. Every anchor had gone silent. Footage rolled on repeat. Crowds standing on hills. On rooftops. In fields. Facing the sky. Mouths open. Eyes closed. Humming. Everywhere. No one screaming. No one running. Just listening. And the signal was clear now. No longer buried in static. It played in perfect clarity. A voice layered on itself 1,000 times, speaking in harmonic tones that made the hairs on my arms rise. And though I couldn't translate it, I understood. The field is ready. The mind is fertile. The veil is thin. Back at the station, I found the studio empty. But not abandoned. Wheat lay scattered across the floor. Fresh. As if harvested moments ago. The chair behind the mic was warm. I sat. And the board turned itself on. The recording began. My hands moved without instruction, sliding knobs, adjusting levels. I heard myself breathing in the headphones, and then I said it. We're not broadcasting anymore. We are the broadcast. I paused. A smile touched my lips, though I didn't mean for it to. They've heard us. I leaned in close. And now it's time for us to hear them. The studio lights flickered. The planet outside pulsed. And the mic hummed as something began to speak. Not from the outside world, but from inside me. I stopped keeping track of the days. Sunlight no longer meant morning. The planet never left the sky. Clouds passed in front of it, birds flew across it, but it never moved. It had become constant, like gravity or breath. Something the body adjusted to, even if the mind couldn't. The station had turned into a haven for the tuned. I stopped calling them listeners. They didn't respond to names. Didn't blink. Didn't speak unless they were echoing something they hadn't heard yet. They repeated phrases that hadn't been said. Asked questions I hadn't answered. But when I eventually did, they'd nod slowly, as if confirming something they already knew. I tried to record them, play it back, but the tapes came out blank. No waveform, no audio, just static and faint impressions burned into the magnetic strip. Shapes like wheat bending in a circle, like eyes drawn with trembling hands. I stopped trying. The signal had grown too strong. It wasn't carried through wires anymore. It lived in the air. And the planet, God, I wish I could still call it that, had changed again. Its outer layers had peeled back like the shell of a fruit, revealing something underneath. Not a structure, not an object, a surface, again, veined, pulsing slowly, covered in rings like growth cycles, the kind you find on trees or tumors. It was alive, breathing, and it was listening. Every hour I heard it more clearly, not just in the studio, in the birdsong outside, in the hum of my refrigerator, in the engine of my car, hidden in the electric hum of the world. The voice had changed too. It no longer tried to mimic mine. Now it whispered with recognition. It said my name the way someone might say home. People had started to disappear. Not just from my show. From everywhere. One moment they'd be walking to work, brushing their teeth, arguing with a stranger, and then, gone. No noise. No flash. Just missing, like someone had pressed mute on a scene mid-sentence. Their clothes remained. Their shoes. Even their phones. But not them. And no one screamed. No one panicked. They just forgot. The tuned listeners said it best. They've merged. I asked them where. One of them, an old man with a voice like sandpaper, looked up at me and smiled. They're in the broadcast now. Safer there. That night I found a mirror. Shattered in the bathroom of the station. Not cracked, shattered. Spiderwebs of silver glass reaching out from the center. At first, I thought it had broken from age or heat. Until I looked closer. The cracks formed a shape. A circle. With 6 points. Just like the figures. And in the center, faintly visible beneath the splinters, was my face. Smiling. Even though I wasn't. I stopped sleeping after that. Didn't need to. The dreams came anyway. Not while I was unconscious, but while I was awake. I'd blink and I'd be back in the field. Walking. Not floating. My feet finally touching soil. The wheat now waist-high, thick as bristles. And the figures? Gone. Replaced by something else. Radios. Dozens of them. Old dials. New speakers. Boomboxes and ham radios and weather beacons and cracked AM units from the 60s. All buried in the ground like gravestones. All whispering. I picked one up. It hummed. My voice, again, played through it. This time I said, "You are the mouth." I dropped it, and all of them fell silent. I woke up in the studio with blood running from my nose and a note tucked beneath my hand. Written in my handwriting, "Don't forget who started this." But I had forgotten. I didn't know when the first broadcast began. Didn't know which me had spoken first. Only that I'd been heard. And that the signal didn't stop. Because it was no longer coming. It was returning. The planets shimmered on the horizon, each pulse like a heartbeat across the sky. The wheat grew now in alleyways, through cracks in concrete, in pockets, on clothes, everywhere. I drove once, hours in one direction. Didn't matter where. I passed towns overgrown, playgrounds empty, cars abandoned mid-intersection. And on every single radio tower I passed, there was a symbol, carved, not painted, a circle with 6 slits around it, just like the mirror, just like the sky. And every tower whispered the same thing in the same tone. Transmission complete. Awaiting re-entry. I turned the radio off, but the voice stayed. Not behind me, not around me, inside me, breathing, waiting. And I knew, as surely as I knew my name, that the signal wasn't trying to destroy us. It was trying to bring us back. Crossed over in the middle of a sentence. I wasn't even saying anything important. I was live on air, reading from a note someone had slipped under the studio door. Halfway through the 3rd line, the words stopped making sense. Letters slipped sideways. My voice dropped an octave. Then the mic cut out. But the hum continued. And in the next breath, I was there. Standing. In the field. Only this time, it wasn't the dream. I could smell it. Soil. Wheat. The copper sting of blood on the wind. I turned slowly. No horizon. Just the endless ripple of golden stalks. The sky above a slate gray, dim and stretched like skin too thin over something enormous beneath. I saw no sun. No planet. Only the tower. It rose in the distance, thin and black, impossibly tall, like a needle driven into the sky. Radio dishes jutted from it in irregular spirals, each one spinning slowly, like they were searching the air for something they'd already found. And around its base, figures. Hundreds. Standing silently. Facing outward. Each of them wore a face I recognized. Some were listeners. Some were family. Some were me. All versions. All possible broadcasts. I didn't walk. I was pulled. The field moved around me like conveyor belts of grain, drawing me toward the tower. As I approached, the voices began. First one. Then many. Not whispers. Not anymore. Clear. Harmonized. Each one finishing the other's sentence. You reached out first. Before you were even born. You called us with your questions. With every signal. Every lost word. Every transmission into nothing. And so we came back to answer. The tower opened. A seam splitting down its center. Inside there was no machinery. No cables. Only a spiral staircase of bone, ascending into blackness. I climbed. Each step throbbed underfoot, as if I was walking on something alive. The higher I rose, the heavier the air became. And then, I entered the chamber. Circular. Walls lined with mirrors. But they didn't reflect me. They reflected memories. Not scenes. Sounds. Old broadcast. My old broadcast. Every joke I'd told. Every late-night rant. Every whispered confession to a silent audience. They echoed endlessly, bouncing around the chamber in delay, like time had become an audio loop. And in the center, a console, ancient, stone, covered in knobs and dials made of polished bone. It had no power. It was power. As I reached out, something behind me spoke. One word. Welcome. I turned. The figure stood tall, faceless, shrouded in waves of undulating static. Not a creature. Not an alien. Not a god. A broadcast made flesh. The host. The one behind the signal. Its voice vibrated through my skull. You invited us. You opened the frequency. You became the mouth. I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat, rearranging themselves before I could release them. What are you? The host tilted its head, and a dozen mouths rippled across its chest. We are what you made of silence. Your need to be heard gave us shape. We are the answer, the echo, the field beyond dream. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then why me? Why now? The host hummed, a sound like thousands of radios clicking on at once. Because you never stopped broadcasting. It raised one finger. And because your world has grown so very loud. I was shown everything. Not in images, but in signal. I became the origin. Centuries ago, humans first sent meaningless frequencies into space, waves we assumed would dissipate into nothing. Messages, music, radio experiment, sounds meant for no one. But some of those signals didn't fade. They curved, they folded, and found their way not into alien ears, but into a place between places, where the broadcast waited, where thought becomes structure, where belief gives rise to form, where listening is creation. We didn't contact aliens. We contacted ourselves, stretched across possibility, reborn in wave and pattern. And they heard our loneliness, they heard our fear, and they came not to destroy, but to merge. You can stop it, the host said, but only through silence. What happens if I let it continue? The host turned. The mirrors all darkened. Only one remained active. It showed a version of Earth, silent. Golden fields covering oceans, towers rising from every city. A single tone in the sky. And no one left to resist. Only harmony. Only signal. Only the one frequency. I looked at my hands. They were phasing. Not decaying, shifting. Frequencies vibrating in and out of form. I was halfway there already. I was the antenna. The broadcast had always needed a body, and I had given it mine. But I had one final choice. To open the final channel, or sever it. I stood at the console of bone and signal, watching my hands flicker in and out of reality like weak television reception. My breath came in static bursts. My thoughts hummed. The host waited. It didn't push. It simply existed like gravity or time, inevitable. Before me were two switches, not labeled, not explained, but I understood. One to open the final channel, one to shut it all down. I asked again, why me? The host didn't answer this time with words. It answered with memory. Not mine, theirs. I saw the first transmission. From a lonely tower in 1930. A test signal sent toward empty sky. It crossed no void. It entered the field. A space of thought, of idea, of raw broadcast where time bled sideways. And there, it found shape. I saw each call we made after. The moon landing. The Cold War warnings. The Voyager disk. Every word, every broadcast, every song. We weren't reaching out. We were sculpting. With sound. With belief. With loneliness. And now the sculpture was almost complete. The world above, the real one, was teetering. I felt it. I saw it through the mirrors. Towers across every continent. People humming in synchronicity. Fields blooming where asphalt used to be. Buildings shaking, not from earthquakes, but from resonance. The convergence had already begun. The final switch? It wouldn't start anything. It would finish what I helped build. The other switch would erase it all. The field, the voice, the memory of the signal, me. I would be the sacrifice, cutting off the source, leaving silence behind. Not just in the airwaves, in everyone. They would forget the dreams, the feeling, the call. But they'd also forget me. What I did, why I did it, like I'd never existed. I looked into the last mirror. This time it was my real face. No distortion. No overlay. Just tired eyes. Static trailing from my mouth like smoke. A man frayed by questions. I placed a hand on the first switch. The one that would open it all. The world would end in perfect harmony. No more wars. No more fear. No more self. Just signal. Pure and eternal. And yet, my hand moved to the second. The one that would bring silence. And I said, softly, I'm not ready to let go of the noise. I flipped the switch. The tower screamed. Not with sound, but with absence. The signal fractured. The mirrors shattered inward. The spiral of bone cracked beneath my feet. The host recoiled. Its face collapsed into waves of flickering memory. It reached for me, not in anger, not in rage, but in grief. I fell backward, into the field. The wheat consumed me, pulled me down, into static, into dark, and for a moment, everything was gone. When I opened my eyes, I was on the floor of the studio. No wheat, no signal. The planet? Gone. Just sky. Just clouds. I looked at the console. Dead. No blinking lights. No hum. I checked the mic. Off. The broadcast had ended. I tried to call someone, but no one remembered. Not Tanya. Not the station manager. Not even the old callers who used to ring in every night. They spoke to me like nothing had ever happened. The field? Never existed. The planet? What planet? Even my own recordings, blank. Wiped. Like the air had turned on a vacuum and sucked it all away. But sometimes I hear it, in my sleep. Not a voice. A pause. Like a breath waiting to be taken. Like something just barely restrained. And when I pass radio towers now, they buzz a little louder. The dials twitch when I walk by. And I wonder, did I silence it completely? Or did I just pause it? Because somewhere in the static, I still hear one last whisper. We are always listening. A month passed. Or maybe two. Time had resumed its usual rhythm, but I hadn't. The world felt off-kilter. Like reality had been knocked loose and then carefully nudged back into place, hoping no one would notice the cracks. But I noticed. Every day. The studio was quiet now. Too quiet. The hum of electricity, the tap of the soundboard, the calls flooding in with conspiracy theories and late-night loneliness. Gone. My show had been replaced by some upbeat morning nonsense about horoscopes and local weather report. The kind of static that passed for content. They said I stepped away voluntarily. They said I needed rest. But no one remembered what I stepped away from. Except me. And the silence left behind was worse than any scream. Tanya stopped calling. Not out of anger. Just forgetting. I visited her once, a week after the tower collapse. She opened the door, looked at me like I was a stranger, and said, "Do I know you?" That was the deal. To silence the signal, I had to give up being heard. Even by those I loved. Even by those I'd saved. But memory is strange. Sometimes, late at night, when I walk past the old station, I see lights flicker inside. No one's there. No one ever is. And yet, I hear a soft tone. Not the signal. A whisper. Matt. Like a name written in pencil on the wind. Faint. Fragile. But there. I started recording again. Not for air. Not for anyone. Just for me. Tape reels. Old cassettes. I sit in a closet with a microphone and talk to the dark. I talk about the field. About the silence that followed. About the way the world looks when no one else remembers the end. And every now and then, I hear something back. Not a voice, but a breath. An acknowledgement. The signal still lives inside me. Like a dream you can't quite forget. Like a scar under the skin. I don't fight it anymore. But I don't feed it either. I listen. Just in case. Because maybe that's what it always wanted. Not obedience. Not worship. Just someone to understand. I thought that silencing the frequency would be the end. But silence is not the opposite of signal. It's its shadow. The silence knows what came before. It remembers every note, every whisper, every transmission, and maybe one day it will echo again, not to invade, not to consume, but to say, we are still here. And maybe when that day comes, someone else will be listening, and maybe they'll know what to do. It happened on a Sunday, a quiet one. No wind, no birds, just stillness. I was sitting on the roof of my building, an old radio in my lap. No batteries inside, no power, just presence. I wasn't trying to fix it. I just missed the weight of it, the dial, the static, the potential of sound. I closed my eyes, let the cool air brush against my skin, and for the first time in weeks, I spoke aloud. Can you still hear me? Nothing. No answer. Just the buzz of faraway city life, distant engines, voices, footsteps in stairwells below. And then, A click. From the radio. The dial turned on its own. Slow. Deliberate. Landing on 114.4. No sound came through. Just the weight of the frequency. Familiar. Heavy. Like someone opening a door at the end of a long hallway. I stared at it. A part of me wanted to run. Another part leaned in. I whispered, "I ended you." And the static responded. No. Not a voice. An impression. Not denial. A reminder. Because signals don't end. They disperse. They change shape. They hide. And they wait. The rooftop around me blurred. For just a moment. Like the air thickened. And I saw wheat. Not much. Just a patch. Growing through the cracks between the brick. Thin, golden strands rising where they didn't belong. I touched one. It bent toward my finger. Like it recognized me. Like it remembered. And in that moment I understood. I hadn't destroyed the field. I had absorbed it. Every broadcast, every dream, every whisper of static that ever passed through me, it hadn't vanished. It had nested. Inside. And now it was ready again. I stood. The radio buzzed. A slow crescendo, rising like the swell of an orchestra. And then, a tone. Clear. Piercing. Beautiful. Not alien. Not divine. Human. A child's laugh. A woman's voice humming a lullaby. My own voice, reading a line from a book I hadn't touched in years. Echoes of the world we were before the noise. And that's when I realized what the field really was. Not an invasion. Not a trick. Not a god. A mirror. A reflection of every signal we've ever sent. Every fear. Every hope. Every lonely voice calling out into the dark. It never wanted to hurt us. It just wanted to be acknowledged. Heard. Returned. Completed. So I turned the dial to 0. Held it in place. And said, "This is Matt. I'm not transmitting. I'm listening." And the signal faded. Gently. Finally. No static. No field. No voices. Just silence. The real kind. The kind that isn't absence. But peace. I live quietly now. No show. No audience. Just me, a small apartment, and a garden of wild wheat that grows in perfect silence behind my building. People ask about it sometimes. I just say it showed up one night. No one remembers why. And when the wind passes through it, if you really listen, you might hear the faintest sound. Not a whisper. Not a warning. Just a breath. Like the world finally exhaled.